Imagined, where we imagine what Star Wars could have been and what it could be if we come together as a fan base. If you like what you see here, please like, subscribe, and share. I would love to discuss this with you.
Today we talk about Solo and the box office numbers, and it's important to note that I know there's a lot of commentary coming out and a lot of different takes on this. We'll start off talking about the box office numbers and what it means, and then we'll go into why this is happening a little bit and how it can be fixed. So for starters, it looks like, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the box office numbers are being revised down, the estimates, for the 4-day total of about 105 to 110 million, down from 150 to 170 million. So we're having a significant drop. And though the Thursday preview was technically a record for preview amounts, it's less than half of what Rogue One made on its preview. And its total for the opening night, which includes the preview, is less than half of what Rogue One made on its opening night. So it made 155 million on a 3-day weekend, and it looks like Solo will make about 105 to 110 million on a 4-day weekend. And so that's the numbers that we're talking about. Now, what does this mean? I mean, well, it seems to mean that the boycott against Solo has worked, and a significant portion of decrease in sales. And you have to understand that some people who didn't like The Last Jedi are still going to see it. You can go look on any comment blog or thing and find that they didn't like The Last Jedi, yet they still went and saw it. But there are some people, a significant portion, that didn't like it, they're just not going to go see this movie. And that's hurting the box office numbers. The story that's coming out right now is that there's Star Wars fatigue, and that's just not true. I mean, there's fatigue for bad Star Wars. These fans, and I think they're a significant portion of the fans, a significant portion of the significant paying fandom, do not like the direction Star Wars is going. And this is resulting in low box office numbers. And I've previously talked about the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, and this is super significant. And the reason being is because that the 80-20 rule, it means that 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. Or if we take this into money, 80% of profits come from 20% of the fans. And so there's an estimated 1.4 billion fans worldwide to Star Wars. That means that 20% of that is about 280 million, approximately. That sounds realistic. That means that 280 million fans provide 80% of the income or profits to Star Wars. That sounds realistic. And then to take this down even further, it means that because you can subdivide that 20%, and you can say that 20% of that 280 million equate to 64% of the profits of Star Wars. And these are approximate values. I mean, they could be varied. Is what it repeatedly comes out to when they run the numbers. Economists run these numbers. So that means that 4% of the total 1.4 billion provide, probably somewhere around 60% of the total profits to Star Wars. Well, that's 56 million people if you take that. I mean, and that sounds realistic. So I mean, if you think about a movie making $1 billion, and the average ticket in the United States is about $9 a ticket, and you can see how you can get to $1 billion real fast if these diehard fans, that 4%, are going to see a movie repeatedly. And you can see how them not going to see a movie repeatedly can suck the money right out of a movie. And if they're not buying toys, you can see how they'll suck the money right out of them toys. And you can see if it's merchandising and they don't want to support that because it ticks them off, how them being angry about something means they don't buy the licensed material toward that particular product. So messing with that 20% can have a significant effect on your overall profits. Now that doesn't mean that all of the 4% that provide that are ticked off. Many of them aren't. And it doesn't mean that all of that 20% is all ticked off. Many of them aren't. But messing with it, ticking them off, can have a significant effect on your total profits. And it seems to, at first glance. Now, we won't be able to dig into these numbers further until we have, hard numbers, which will be a couple of weeks from now. But initial estimates show it dropping, and probably, it looks like it's more likely than not that the boycott had something to do with it. Now, why are we here? I mean, that's the question, and I would say that this portion of the fandom, which does include me, is not happy about the direction of Star Wars, and I'll let you see a video here where it shows, how Kathleen Kennedy's really not a fan of Star Wars.
Were you always a Star Wars fan?
I was a Star Wars fan in the fact that I had already decided to become a film major in college when the movie came out.
And here's where Kevin Feige is a fan of the MCU or Marvel.
I've been a Marvel fan my entire life. I've worked for Marvel for over 10 years now.
What's happened is Kathleen Kennedy was never a huge fan of Star Wars. She didn't. It never really appealed to her, which is why she makes a statements like Luke Skywalker doesn't appeal to females, because it didn't appeal to her. She's been on some big name projects. I'm not saying she's not good at running numbers and wouldn't be pretty good at running other types of franchise. I'm not even saying she wouldn't totally be good at running Star Wars, but she's not good at determining stories for Star Wars. What Star Wars has become, and I think there's other commentary out there that would support me, so I don't think I'm the only one thinking this, but that she is making Star Wars, she's directing Star Wars into a direction that appeals to her, and this is exactly what Rian Johnson was doing. He was making a story for himself, and he so much as stated that. What does that mean? Well, I mean, if we look at their philosophy, they tend to be postmodernists in their philosophy, and majority of the world, majority of the U.S. populace doesn't think that way, and and I'm not saying they're not shifting that way. I mean, they may in the future, and maybe that's their plan, but as it stands right now, they're not there. They do not think like postmodernists, and so even though Europe and Russia and those areas have leaned toward that in their societal views, the U.S. is clearly not there. And since the U.S. is distinctly their market, that's not a wise choice to move there at this point in time. So it's affected their bottom line. And the movie makes its majority of income off its first 2 weeks. That they have a high percentage of take from the box office. And if you look at when, like, The Last Jedi made all, majority of its money, it was in the first 2 weeks. So, if there's a reason why they had a good take, that's why. And they even forced the theaters to extend out that period for the first month. So there was a hard hit on theaters for the first month, and that significantly helped The Last Jedi's profitability, because it did tank after the first week. And so where are we? What does that mean? Does it mean that Star Wars: The Last Jedi is completely a bad story? Well, not if you buy into certain philosophies. It's not, and you can take it from even with the monomyth, you can even apply some portions of it to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. But it's taken from a very dark place and from a philosophy, and it requires you to break down things that didn't occur on screen. So, and while this appeals to certain aspects of people, there's a significant portion of the fandom that it does not appeal to. And does that mean that we expect a bubblegum Luke Skywalker? No. But there are some things that need to be done. And I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about that. That right there is what's affecting the view of Star Wars. So we have Kathleen Kennedy writing it from her point of view, or directing it, influencing it from her point of view, what it ties to her, what she wants Star Wars to be. This is not the same Star Wars that Lucas wanted it to be. This is not the same Star Wars as Lucas' protege Dave Filoni would probably take it. And this is important to note, because this is a direction that a significant number of fans do not want either. And it's enough of the fans that it could ultimately hurt the bottom line of Lucasfilm and and it should change the direction of Star Wars, because there is a way to write Star Wars that appeals to all the other fans and continues to grow the franchise. And so taking it down this direction, looks like it's not the right way to do that. So how do we improve our numbers? What strategy should be taken to improve the numbers? Well, there's probably a couple of strategies. I've talked about how Disney can change its business model before and open it up to open up fandom. But another way is, there's fans edits like Ivan Ortega on FilmFix channel, who's re-editing and redoing Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and I have my own take on that. As a matter of fact, I think there's 25 things that could be changed, and I don't think they're very significant. They won't change the runtime. As a matter of fact, they'd probably reduce the runtime. That would significantly change the story in The Last Jedi, though the outcome would be pretty close to the same. And so what does this mean? Well, it means that there are ways to subvert expectations, ways to bend a story that will appeal to almost everyone. And when I mean almost everyone, I mean the most significant portions of your fandom. You really got to think about that 20% first, and then the 80%, the other 80% last. And when you tell a new story, and because to subvert that, to undermine that, is to ultimately destroy your property, and that is not a good business model in any way, shape, or form. So I'll address those 20 changes later in time. I'm working on rewriting the Last Jedi script that keeps the basic outcome of the story the same. That'll then lead to trying to also re-edit it in a way that keeps it together, so hopefully you'll stick with us, and you'll be able to see that as it starts to come out. I appreciate you spending your time here on this channel. I hope you will like and subscribe and share, and comment below, because I would love to talk Star Wars with you. Thank you, and you have a good day, and may the Force be with you. And remember,
you are the force to be reckoned with.